Tonight on KQED Newsroom, educators warn a crisis is unfolding inside our classrooms as teachers experience burnout like never before and are considering leaving the profession in record numbers. We speak with special guest Beatrice Viramontes with Teach for America. And bold moves by the city of San Jose to increase gun control. Hundreds of acres of land returned to Native Americans. And U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announces she'll seek another term in office. Our panel of reporters consider this week's big stories in California. Plus, iguanas, turtles, and boa constrictors. This week's look at something beautiful takes us inside the colorful reptilian mecca that is the East Bay Vivarium. Coming to you from KQED headquarters in San Francisco, this Friday, January 28th, 2022. Hello and welcome to the show. This is KQED Newsroom and I'm Priya David Clemens. We start the show tonight with education. The COVID-19 pandemic has placed incredible pressure on our school systems and on teachers in particular, who say they're experiencing significant stress and burnout. One study found that twice as many teachers experience frequent job-related stress than people in other professions and are 3 times more likely to suffer from symptoms of depression.
Yes, I'm definitely feeling burned out. In fact, every teacher I work with and every teacher I know is experiencing some level of burnout right now.
We're all in a boat, and some of us have paddles and some of us don't, and we have blisters and we're rowing and we're in it together. And I still feel that, but it just feels like the water's got a whole lot scarier.
I'm exhausted. Burnt out? Yeah. Trying to make it through each day? Yeah. Trying to stay awake long enough to make dinner and be somewhat present to my own children. I feel like every day is a battle. I'm getting emotional. I'm ready to cry. And I love what I do.
Many California schools are already struggling with staffing shortages, and study after study finds that teachers are contemplating quitting in record numbers. Joining me now with in-depth perspective on teacher burnout is Teach for America Bay Area Executive Director Beatrice Viramontes. Beatrice, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Priya. I really appreciate being a part of this conversation.
Your job is to recruit and help train new teachers. Tell us about how that's going these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So Teach for America is an organization that enlists leaders to considering joining the call to become an educator, in particular serving our low-income schools that serve predominantly students of color. And what I would say is there are individuals out there who are passionate about our mission and who are saying yes to this opportunity. And it is getting harder and harder year after year to recruit teachers, period. This is true for Teach for America. It's true for the state of California. We've been seeing a teacher shortage that's become tougher and tougher year after year for the last decade. And right now, when people think about teaching, in the context of an ongoing pandemic that seems to recede and come back, the call is that much harder to say yes to. We're hearing and seeing, anecdotally as well as studies that teachers are experiencing the highest levels of stress, anxiety, and burnout. And when young leaders consider whether or not this is a path they want to take, that's part of what they're holding as they think about their opportunities in front of them.
So it's tough getting people into teaching. The other piece of this is retention, right? So let's listen to what one teacher had to say about how he feels about staying in the job.
Yes, I think about quitting a lot. There's been days been walking down the hallway thinking if I could quit right now, I would. And I think the bigger problem is, as a veteran teacher, I need to hang on until I can retire like a lot of veteran teachers. But it's the younger ones, the younger teachers that are just coming up that we need. They're going to be quitting. They've been, teaching 1 or 2 years or something, and they didn't sign up to invent school online. Right now, it's so overwhelming. They're smart. They can do something else. Why go into an overwhelming job where you're just stressed and you're losing sleep every night just for, maybe you could do something in tech that gets more pay.
And it is obviously a job that many people do because they just love teaching, they love education, they want to be there to train up the next generation. Are you seeing that churn that he's talking about with teachers leaving jobs?
Absolutely. And, part of it is happening now, and part of it is, I think, a window into what is coming in the next few months and for this coming fall. Just to give you some context, I started in education as a teacher myself. I taught middle school. My mom taught for over 30 years in Los Angeles, and both of my sisters teach currently middle school and high school.
It's a family
job.
It's
a family job and a
profession.
family passion, right?
Yeah.
We love our children and this work. And so I get a window into the reality of the teaching job right now through my family, but also through the hundreds of teachers that Teach for America supports across Iberia communities. And everything that teacher shared resonates on so many levels. I see educators who have made the decision to make this a lifelong career, who are saying, I have never thought this many times about quitting because I don't know what to expect from one day to the next. I don't know if I'm going to be covering classes. Instructional coaches who say, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get into a room and coach a teacher. I might just be covering for the teachers that are calling in sick because they tested positive for COVID. There's a substitute shortage. There's not enough talent to literally meet the need that there is right now in our schools. And hearing the teacher say the concern around young teachers, that's very real too. We have teachers that are learning a craft that is already hard. Teaching is one of the most complex jobs you can imagine as people think about addressing learning loss, holding the needs of families, fielding the calls and questions families might be having right now. On top of this pandemic has become that much harder. And so when you have new teachers that are learning the craft altogether and holding a broader scope, a broader responsibility than they have prior to the pandemic, teachers are burning out. And for our young people who, have many opportunities in front of them, this is a candidate's market right now. We've been talking about the great resignation or the great renegotiation. They're thinking about their mental health. They're thinking about their overall wellness. They're thinking about flexibility and see so many other pathways where they can fulfill a calling or a mission and be able to take better care of themselves. And so, yes, this is something that we're thinking about, we're concerned about. And, a recent survey showed that 1 in 2 teachers, 48%, over the last 30 days, considered quitting. I want us to hold that, because if we learned anything during this pandemic, it's that schools are critical to a functioning society, period. When schools shut down, it impacts family units, it impacts parents being able to engage in the workforce, it impacts families getting food on the table. If we were to think about 1 in 2 teachers quitting now and not being here tomorrow, what would that mean for our society? That is a level of concern that I think all of us as a community, legislators, decision makers need to be holding as we think about what it's going to take to not just recruit, but retain the current teachers that we have in the workforce right now.
So what do you see coming down the road? As this school year ends and the next one begins, are you expecting even more educator shortages? Are you expecting mass resignations?
Combination of both, I would say yes. We're going to see folks resign unless they see schools and the broader community stepping up in a different way to resource our schools and help alleviate the many demands that teachers are holding right now. And I do think we're going to see more shortages. I mean, again, I mentioned that the state of California has been experiencing an ongoing teacher shortage and ability to recruit the number of people that we need. And that's felt even more acutely in our schools that serve our low-income students of color. And so at this moment, given the demands of the job and the narrative that our broader community is hearing around teaching, when we think about vacancies and a district opening up a school year with tens or hundreds of vacancies, it's going to be most felt by our low-income communities of color. And so, yes, this is the concern. And this is why, for me, as someone who works with educators day in and day out, am asking myself, what could we be doing to advocate for solutions, to start to implement solutions now, but also advocate for solutions that we're going to need so that in the fall, we have the quality talent we need in our schools to take care of our children, who are the most valuable in our society.
You're talking about all that teachers hold, and in many instances, schools have become de facto daycares, food pantries. We've seen them, serving as mental health crisis units. We have an interview from a teacher that we spoke with this week. Let's listen to that.
Schools don't happen in a vacuum. So there's a lot of resources here at our school, but when students are coming in hungry from home, or when they have a parent that has to work many jobs and isn't there all the time, you see that parent is showing their love to their kid by getting food on their table and working those jobs, but our whole society isn't set up to support those families. And that then comes to our school when students show up with their needs, with so many needs, and we can't support that always, all those different needs in the building.
Teachers are being asked to do much more than teach. What are your thoughts about the burden that teachers are currently being asked to carry?
Well, I would start by saying that one of the things that makes the teaching profession so rewarding is the relationship that you build with students and with their families. And so in some ways, it makes sense that families and students are coming to teachers with so many more questions and so many more needs because of that relationship that they hold. That is not sustainable. And yes, it's true that over the course of the pandemic, schools were providing more mental health services, or there was greater demand for mental health services for students. Schools were feeding students and families. And also we had families, experiencing eviction, loss of housing because they lost their employment and didn't have income coming into their household. All of those issues were exacerbated and are coming to teachers. Teachers are fielding these concerns and questions. And our schools, given the demand and the scope of this, aren't equipped right now to help support teachers in taking some of that and directing families to the services that they need. And so
let's just listen to this and then let's come back to you. We asked these teachers what kind of help and support they want and need. So let's listen to what they have to say, and then we want to hear your solutions as well.
What is considered having a school open? Is it just the brick and mortar? Is it just the lights on? Is it just people being physically present? We are really doing our best to, with limited resources that we have, to keep children safe, to keep children healthy and happy and joyful.
Mental health services, I would say, is the #1 issue facing our country, but facing students right now. We need more funding and more social workers, more therapists in our schools.
The people who are making the decisions need to be closer to the classroom level, and they need to trust the people who are in the day-to-day, or they need to be coming here and seeing what's happening every day in the classroom.
So Beatrice, please, your thoughts on what can be done, needs to be done to help support our teachers.
Absolutely. First of all, there are things that we can be doing now to support our teachers. So first, safety. A lot of our schools need masks. They need more testing. We're hearing teachers ask that of the administrators and leadership, and there's a role that our government can do to step up right now and ensure that those needs are being met. We also can start providing some of the mental wellness resources for teachers in and of themselves, so that they feel like they're taking better care of themselves. One of the things that we're doing at Teach for America is exploring what does that look like. We've integrated a wellness framework into our coaching, so that our teachers are having conversations with their coach about the different aspects of wellness: financial wellness, physical wellness, emotional wellness. We also have given them access to a free platform to access mental health resources. That can be done at scale. We should be doing that for all of our educators. They all deserve that right now. And when we look at the coming year, this is where we need systemic solutions in place. And what does give me optimism is we have a governor who I really do believe sees education as a priority. He just revealed his new budget, and within that budget, there are over $2 billion for COVID response. That's going to lead to some of those resources to ensure that schools feel safe for everyone: teachers, kids, families, and all other support staff. There's also $50 million in there to recruit and retain teachers. Now, how that money is defined, how communities are going to use those funds to actually put the practices in place that are going to lead teachers to feel supported and like they can sustain themselves in that work, I think that's the question. So the money is there. We just have to engage in conversations as a community soon over the next few months to prioritize what it is that teachers really need. Some of it is wellness for themselves. Some of them is wellness for students. And some of it is just having a lot more support staff like psychologists, counselors, and even instructional coaches to help teachers hone that part of their practice, because students are still coming in with a lot of incomplete learning for the last years. And so it is a tall task, and there are solutions that we can begin to implement at scale now.
Beatrice Viramontes, the Executive Director of Teach for America Bay Area, we wish you well.
Thank you.
Although COVID cases have been slowly declining over the past couple of weeks, the California Department of Public Health confirmed there's a new Omicron subvariant called BA.2, with at least 2 cases reported so far in the Bay Area. This week, Governor Gavin Newsom and state lawmakers reached an agreement to bring back COVID sick leave for businesses employing 25 or more people. The benefit, which had expired last fall, will provide up to 2 weeks of extra paid leave to recover from COVID or to care for a family member with the virus. The benefit also covers vaccine-related side effects and appointments. Joining me now is KQED politics and government correspondent Marisa Lagos. Welcome, Marisa.
Hey, Priya.
And for the first time here with us is KQED Silicon Valley reporter Aditi Bandlamudi. Thank you for being here, Aditi.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. So we're going to start with COVID because it is still top of mind for everyone. And this week there were some moves by Governor Newsom and by the state legislature to strengthen vaccine mandates specifically for students. Marisa,
that's right. Yeah, I mean, this is really a debate that's been playing out since last year when the governor did announce that he would include COVID-19 on that list of required shots in order to go to both private and public school. Now, Dr. Richard Pan, a state senator who's really made vaccines sort of a centerpiece of his time in the legislature, wants to put that into statute, which would essentially eliminate what's called the personal belief exemption. That's the ability of families to say, we don't believe in this vaccine, we don't want to take it. You know, you can still not take it if you have a medical reason or others, but if this legislation were to pass, it would really force, I think, a lot of families who might be on the fence to get vaccinated. We also saw State Senator Scott Wiener kind of going even a step further and saying he wants the legislature to pass this proposal that would make teens be able to get vaccinated without their parents' approval. And I think this is going to be a huge fight, Priya.
Yeah.
This is a very big, very sort of fraught issue, and last time it came up around measles and other vaccines, we saw a lot of disruptions and protests up in Sacramento.
I did see some Republican leaders who were tweeting their disapproval, of course, of these measures.
Very partisan.
It's become very partisan, but you wonder how much power they really have to make any.
No, I mean, I think the question is going to be if Democrats can sort of coalesce around this. I mean, I think there's going to be Democrats who might not want to force families to do something like this. And so we'll see. But I predict that this will be a big battle.
Big bruising fight. All right. Well, let's turn to what could be a potential fight nationally. Aditi, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer announced after 30 years of service in the U.S. Supreme Court, he is stepping down. And so this provides President Biden with the space to potentially appoint someone for that position. And we're looking at possibly a California replacement.
It seems like it could be. One of President Biden's promises was that he would appoint a black woman to that seat. And one of the names that's sort of being tossed around right now is Justice Leandra Kruger. She's, one of the youngest justices ever appointed to the California Supreme Court. And she's argued 12 cases before the Supreme Court. And she served in the Justice Department under presidents under both parties. She's also more moderate, so it may help her case in getting this seat, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll be watching for that. We should get some news on that coming up fairly soon.
Hope
right?
so.
All right, so House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced she will seek election for another term. Marisa, you were following this week, this announcement. What do you make of this? I mean, she's 81. Is there going to be room for the younger generation to come up?
I mean, that's been sort of debated in the Democratic Party for years. Look, in some ways, this is a surprise in the sense that she had promised that this would be her last term as Speaker. And it is, I think, pretty unprecedented that anyone would stay on in Congress after they've been in that leadership role, right? Mm. However, we have this huge midterm coming up. I do not think that she wants to make herself a lame duck. She's, helping other members with their fundraising, the DNC. So I think that, one thing to keep in mind, Priya, is she can retire or resign at any point, even before she might maybe got sworn in for a new term. So I think that this kind of puts a pin in speculation locally about who might run for that seat, at least for a while, and gives her a little bit of sort of strength heading into this year. But I don't expect we're going to see Nancy Pelosi, sticking around Washington for decades longer.
All right. But she doesn't want to be seen
well,
as
I don't know if
she
could.
Right, yeah. Aditi, another story you covered this week was San Jose. The city has implemented some new, first in the nation style gun control measures, and they're tackling this now through insurance and through fees.
Yeah. I mean, it is it's something that's never been tried before in any other, city or state or jurisdiction. But the thinking is sort of that insurance makes you safer. You think about if you have car insurance, you're maybe going to be more careful about driving and making sure your car's oil is changed and that you're taking driver safety classes. So similarly, I think the San Jose City Council figures if you have insurance for the gun that you may own, then you may lock up your guns more safely and take gun safety training courses. They're also requiring that gun owners pay an annual fee, and that fee goes towards all of the sort of aftermath costs that come after gun violence, like trauma care and victims' compensation.
Which San Jose has seen because of the shooting in Gilroy and the shooting at the transportation agency down there as well. It was a VTA down there. Yeah,
definitely.
Another sort of unusually this week, we saw a fire. Now, my question is, Marisa, to you, there was a big fire in Big Sur.
Yeah.
It's January. We did just have rain in December, but what are climate scientists saying? Can I still call this unusual, or is this like our new normal?
I think it's probably our new normal. I mean, we've been saying this for years, right?
Yeah.
We used to have a fire season. It was pretty sort of set at the end of summer into the fall. Now it feels year round. But when you see a fire like this, I think it really drives that home. And yeah, what we're hearing from fire chiefs in other areas of the Bay Area is like, hey, don't sleep on this, right? I mean, this started because somebody was burning debris in a pile, what was supposed to be a controlled burn. I think that there's a real sense that unless we get more wet weather, that this could be a risk in a lot of places. And people just need to be on high alert all the time now.
I did want to also ask you about your guest on Political Breakdown this week, because you had Young Kim on from Southern California, from Orange County. Tell us a little bit about her and how she's doing. She flipped a seat down there.
She's a Republican from a district that actually encompasses part of San Bernardino County as well. She is really tried to carve out a path for herself as a moderate. And I think that it's going to be fascinating to see. When she ran first in 2018 and then in 2020, she was very adamant, this is not the party of Trump. She didn't want to get into it when I asked her about the January 6th Commission and things around Kevin McCarthy and whether it was a good faith effort to try to put someone like Representative Jim Jordan, who denies the election results there. But she has worked across the aisle far more than many of her colleagues. She's facing re-election in a district that is actually more Republican than it was last time. And I think it's going to be interesting. She's an immigrant. She has this very incredible story. To see how people like her deal with what the party, is becoming and is marching towards, especially around immigration and other issues like that.
Okay. Good news. It seemed, at least to me, I loved this story, to hear that butterflies are back, baby. So there's been concern because last year the butterfly counts, which have been declining for many years, the butterflies that come in winter here in California, the counts had declined to under 2,000. This is in comparison to the 1980s, when there were millions of monarchs that would come along the California coastline. This year they're back up suddenly to above a couple 100,000. Aditi, what are you hearing about this?
Well, it is good news, but scientists are kind of confused as to why it's happening. That part is not clear yet, but it is, clear that they are definitely bouncing back. And so, we can expect to sort of see more monarch butterflies. As you mentioned, it's expected to be over 200,000 butterflies, and we could see them in the East Bay and in the North Bay, but we're not really going to see them in the city. But if you do want to see them, you should just wake up super early in the morning. That's what experts are suggesting is the peak time to see a monarch butterfly.
Early risers.
Early bird gets the butterfly. That's right. Aditi, I want to ask you about one other question that's happening down in San Jose. Santa Clara County is looking at building a new jail. Is that right?
They are. This is coming after a little more than a year of sort of waffling between building a jail that has sort of been the plan, or using that money instead to build a behavioral health care facility to sort of solve some of the issues of those who have mental illnesses who are currently incarcerated. And it seems like now what's happening is, so they're moving forward on plans to build that new jail, but they're also looking at options for alternative solutions to incarcerating those who are mentally ill. And so we'll have to see where that second part comes. And we're expected to hear more about that in April.
Okay. All right. Last question. Are either of you football fans? Like, how do we stand on the, you know,
fair weather,
yeah.
but I'll be watching the game.
I mean, look, the team's winning, right?
Yeah,
The hometown team's winning.
exactly.
The 49ers won against the Packers last week in Green Bay. This weekend, they're going up against the Rams in Los Angeles, and it seems like the Rams fans have not been able to keep the 49ers fans out, even though there was a little ticket drama there. They tried to like scoop up all the tickets. And, but Marisa, what do you want to give a prediction? Do you want to tell us what you know as we're coming into this weekend?
All right, I'll say this. I predict this is going to be a very close game. The Rams haven't actually beat the Niners since 2018, but a lot of people think that this could be way closer than the last few games. I think it's going to be exciting. We've seen all the playoff games in recent weeks really come down to the wire, and it seems like that could happen here as well. And, you know, fun. 2 California teams. One of them's going to make it to the Super Bowl, and it will be in LA.
So very exciting. We'll definitely be watching, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So KQED Silicon Valley reporter Aditi Bunlamoody, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And Marisa Lagos, host of Political Breakdown, political reporter extraordinaire at KQED at Large.
Always
Thank you.
a pleasure. Thanks, Priya.
All right. Well, this week's Something Beautiful should perhaps be called Something Slithery. At the East Bay Vivarium, you can find all kinds of snakes and lizards and even a massive Komodo dragon. There are also tarantulas and scorpions for the braver among us.
Yeah, so he gets to come out and chill.
These are some of my favorite bugs in the world. As you can tell, she's a little bit older because she has those black spots on her eyes. She's already had babies. She's a mother. He's just getting a feel. He's realizing that he's standing on a creature right now. It won't sting me, but it'll pinch me if I'm not careful.
He's a big guy. Oh, where are you going there, pal?
Who wants to hug a lizard? That's the end of our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. If you want to get a look behind the scenes, then please hang out with us online too. KQED Newsroom is on Twitter and Facebook. You can email us at knr@kqed.org. You can reach me on Twitter at Priya D. Clemens. We will see you right back here next Friday night. Have a great weekend.